Okay, I'm here with Lesley Ann Jones. Lesley, how are you doing?
I'm very good, how are you?
Very good, very good. So you started off as a journalist, didn't you?
I did. I studied modern languages at college and then worked at Capital Radio, Chrysalis Records. And then while I was at Chrysalis Records, I was given the opportunity to audition for a Channel 4 rock show, which I got the job, and I was a presenter on Channel 4 for a while. And
what was the rock show?
it was called ESA with Nicky Horn and Gary Crowley. And so I was a presenter on that, and in those days, you know, Channel 4 was quite young. Well, it was brand new, and there were only 4 channels. So if you had a job on TV in those days, it was quite a big thing. Nowadays, everybody's on TV, so no big deal. But my very first column on a newspaper was on The Sun, and Kelvin McKenzie, who was the editor then, invited me to write a Girl About Town column. So I just had to write about my life, you know, going around the clubs and the gigs and
were you considered an it girl at the time?
I suppose I was, yeah. I was in my early 20s and it girls weren't really a thing yet, but we were the sort of prototype Tara Palmer Tompkinsons, weren't we? And everything we did was on the front page of The Sun, pretty much, for a while. Yeah.
Was it just, because obviously you've got the 3 a.m. girls and things, like 2 people, was that just purely you?
It was just me, yeah. Right. So I think I didn't appreciate the opportunity as much as I could have done at the time. I think I was too young to understand what a great deal this was, and quite what a massive amount of exposure I was getting at the time. Right. But by the same token, the whole television thing didn't really interest me that much. It's a bit boring, isn't it? Sitting in a green room with a script that somebody else has written, and then you have to learn your bit and go out and deliver it in front of camera. And I was perfectly capable of writing those words myself, for myself to speak. And the writing part overtook the presenting part. I was much more interested in meeting artists and writing about them than I was.
So you found it a bit limiting?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Well, I like radio better than television. Radio, there's much more scope.
You've got a great voice, I imagine.
Thank you.
On radio, you know, obviously you've got a great face too, so on television you've got great, but imagine on radio.
You're saying all the right things, yeah.
Imagine on radio, your voice.
I like the sort of intimacy, but the anonymity of radio. So I think that people, when they're not being seen, are able to express themselves a lot more openly. Yeah. And I think people tend to forget that when you're presenting on radio, you're talking to one person. You're not talking to an audience. I hate it when I hear a presenter say, "Good evening, everyone," because no, you're talking to one person in their bed or in their lounge or in their kitchen. You know, you're talking to one. Yeah. Only one person is hearing you, and it's important to maintain that very intimate relationship.
Do you like talk radio? Because I know a lot of musicians, they tend to sort of relax by, including myself, by listening to talk radio.
I love talk radio. I like talk sport radio as well.
Really? Are you a football fan?
No, but my dad was a footballer, so I sort of grew up in that culture. So yeah, it's very it's my world, you know. I grew up watching football matches.
What team did you play for?
Oh, my dad was a marginal pro, but my family, they called them the Jones boys. So they came from South Wales, 5 brothers and 3 of their sons, who all literally came out of the mines in South Wales to play for First Division English clubs. And the family twice produced the world's most expensive player. The first one was my great uncle Bryn Jones, who was transferred from Wolves to the Arsenal in 1939 for the world record transfer fee of £14,500. Wow. And then in the 60s, my uncle Cliff Jones was sold to Spurs for 35 grand, which was again the world record. Oh, wow. And they call Gareth Bale today the new Cliff Jones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that right? Oh,
yeah. Wow. So he's my uncle, Cliff Jones.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, okay, a bit of a Welsh, you know, obviously a strong Welsh roots.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
So when did you get involved, or what was your earliest memory of liking music or an artist? What particular artist got you into music and got your passion?
I always loved music. I was brought up on music. My parents played a lot of music, and they had a lot of records. Their music was mainly Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Barbra Streisand, Tijuana Brass, that kind of thing. But when I was very young, my auntie, who's my godmother, Auntie Anne, she got into the Beatles, and she's a massive John Lennon fan. Oh, wow. So I was exposed to the Beatles from very early on. But I only really discovered the Beatles after it was all over. over because I was just too young to take it on board. So I was a Wings fan. I loved McCartney and Wings. That was where I kind of came in. Amazing, just so inventive, and I'm passionate about McCartney to this day. But
what about,
so
what do you think about Martin Kintyre? Did you
well, Denny Lane wrote that as opposed to McCartney. Yeah, so. No, not my favourite, I'd have to say. My favourite Wings track was Little Lamb Dragonfly, which I don't think McCartney has ever performed live. Yeah, Little Lamb Dragonfly. Play that. It's the most extraordinary song.